Hey, this is Cameron. Welcome to the reaction log. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We got a special spicy one here. This is a collaboration between beloved music YouTuber Adam Neely and Alex O'Connor, beloved YouTube philosopher. And here in this video, Adam Neely is going to be making a case for jazz music, which, as a classical guitarist, let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am a classical guitarist here on YouTube. And what does that mean? It means that if I'm going to give jazz music any credibility whatsoever, a case needs to be made for it. Now, I talk a lot about the differences between academic and whatever the opposite of academic music is, and I often will say classical and jazz, because I feel like they're kind of cut from the same cloth, at least how we learn them. And I feel that oftentimes when you meet someone who's like a classical guitarist or a jazz musician or whatever, they're usually degree holding, and they went through some sort of conservatory, and they had teachers yell at them, and they had to do all that stuff. So, what am I talking about? That being said, let's go ahead and jump into this video and see what Adam has
like a resurgence of when I was a kid and I first heard Strawberry Fields Forever. I remember feeling like something really funny was going on when that chorus came in, and suddenly everything sounded a bit sort of darker and more intense. And I thought that for years, and then I found out about the sort of the two different recordings that got meshed together, and I felt so validated. I don't know, it really highlighted the fact that I was dealing with this thing that people had created and made decisions, and this is like the Rick Beato thing.
Man, we're just getting everybody here. What is he talking about? Strawberry Fields, is that a jazz tune? So I think what he's talking about is that this song, Strawberry Fields, is like two separate recordings mashed together. Oh, Strawberry Fields Forever is a Beatles song. Of course. Of course it is. I'm obviously not going to play very much of this because it's a Beatles song, and I will get my poop rocked if I play too much of it, so I hear the darkness that you're talking about in Strawberry Fields. It sounds like the audio is down a step or a half step or a whole step or something. And it sounds like they did that effect by like slowing down the audio, like similar to when a DJ will slow down the track by like putting their finger on it and it'll go beer. I guess that's sort of like a modulation. It's a very just like thrown in one without much justification beforehand. It's just like, we're slowing this down. So yeah, in your words, decisions were made there. Yeah, it sounds slowed down. You know, we wonder why AI music sounds so weird. It's being trained on this crap, right? If I were a parent, I wouldn't want my kid listening to this. It sounds demonic.
Just like the Rick Beato thing. It's not just that we don't get that from AI music. Of course we don't. But we're also kind of not getting it from like modern music at all.
I don't know. Are we not getting decisions like that from AI music? I feel like the identifying thing from AI music that we're seeing is flexible time and stuff, like the tempos drifting all over the place. Sounds are morphing throughout the track just because it's an even mix of a bunch of different songs in one. Like in this snare will sound different at the beginning versus the end. I feel like that's a Beatlesque decision. Am I on the wrong side of this argument? I'm sorry. I think where we don't see decisions like that are from people who make overly simple music and just generally don't put very much care into the music that they make. Boring music. So, don't make boring music. Sorry, I don't know what I'm arguing about.
Because everything is so pristine in the studio, maybe we need like a resurgence of live music. I mean, it used to be that people would, they would make a record, which is supposed to be a record of a particular event, which is a performance of a song. They'd stick a microphone in a room and they would play it, and they'd say, all right, there you go, you can take this home. And it was kind of almost like an advertisement for the band, for the music.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe at first, when recorded music first started, when the only way to record something was with one funnel that you would scream or play your instrument into as loud as you possibly could, and then the vibrations would record on the record thing. And recorded music, like at that time, was just kind of a novelty. But buying the music itself quickly became more of just an advertisement for the band. It was the product itself. Like, that is the band. I don't know, I feel like that's a really big oversimplification of recorded music. You just stick a microphone in a room, and that makes people want to go to your show to actually hear it.
And now it's almost like the live shows, the performances are the advertisement for the recorded version. I don't know, that's why we're also seeing like live performances become much less live. It's like everything is supposed to be perfect, the use of autotune, the highly perfect like choreography. It's like a stage show where you want everything to be like identical every single night.
It's funny, like, autotune being part of the conversation of music is perfect now. I feel like that comes from people who have never actually used autotune. Autotune doesn't make you a better singer. And autotune's used on a lot of things, by the way. A lot of guitarists will use autotune for their solos, and it doesn't make you a better guitarist. Depending on how aggressive it is, it makes you a little more in tune, And if you make it very aggressive, it makes you sound like T-Pain, which is a sound. That is a vibe that you can have, but it's not one that most of us who aren't T-Pain want. I'm not saying that Alex O'Connor is saying this now. You just always hear that from music lovers, especially older music lovers, where it's like everybody's using autotune right now. Yeah, like everybody's using plugins and effects in their music. It's not just a raw DI from a guitar or a mic or whatever. A lot of these effects are more felt than heard. It's just ever so slightly reining in a vibrato, like a little bit. And it's usually only correcting by like tenths of a half step if you're using it in a tasteful amount. You can have it as aggressive as you want, but like most people don't use it like that. Most people would use it in a very subtle way. And if you can hear it, that's a lot of autotune. And I'm only bringing that up because he's talking about how music is expected to be like perfect now. But I don't think autotune really makes you perfect. It's usually a pretty subtle thing, is my point. All right, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting a lot.
The charm that's kind of missing is perhaps the everything to be like identical every single night, when part of the charm that's kind of missing is perhaps the rawness. So maybe we just need to encourage a culture of like live music and imperfection.
Yeah. No, I don't think so, Alex O'Connor. At least as a classical guitarist, every time I play my music, I want it to be exactly the same and perfect. There are no perfect imperfections in classical music. There is perfection, and then there is you need to go practice more. What you're describing sounds anti-practice and hedonistic, Alex O'Connor. I'm just kidding. I'm being ridiculous right now. I don't really know what this video is about. Can I just shut up and listen to the video? Oh my god.
Can I interest you in some jazz?
Say no. Say no, Alex. Say no.
Because the entire point of jazz music is being in the moment and experiencing improvisation and reacting to things in the room and all of that.
It's actually a funny point that Adam brought up. If you've studied classical music, it's actually a really big part of our training to not be reactive. I remember in like middle and high school orchestra, if we were doing a solo or something, part of the practice would be the teacher like trying to distract us on purpose with the goal that it shouldn't affect your performance at all. So it's kind of funny. It's the opposite.
This is my pitch for jazz. This is my pitch for the improvisational art of jazz music in small spaces.
We've reached the thesis of the video.
It's obviously not for everybody, and it sometimes is a very opaque genre.
Yeah.
But it's also a very exciting genre of music, specifically because it places so much emphasis on spontaneity, also typically best experienced in small venues. You know, part of what you're talking about, like the hyper process with the auto-tune and the choreography and everything, is usually for like these big stage shows and live venues, which is a very different kind of musical experience than being in some basement with, 30 people and listening to jazz or like a rock band or like some small group of people.
Yeah. This perfect music that we're talking about, which I guess we're just kind of tacking on to hyper-processed pop music, it's designed to be consumed by the most amount of people possible. So it does kind of make sense that it needs to be ultra consistent and polished. If there's too much variation in it, at one night it might not appeal to the majority of people. And wouldn't that be a tragedy for the people funding these hyper-processed pop shows, right? The question then is just, do you want to be a part of something like that? And I think most of you watching this show right now would probably answer no, and you'd rather be in the basement listening to the rock band, or better yet, in your own basement practicing your classical guitar, ideally.
Pandemic, of course, was such an insane time for the world.
Facts. It was insane.
And the thing that I think about the most is that was the longest time in human history, by far, that live music didn't exist.
I was in college at the time. I was finishing up my senior year, and that year is kind of a blur. I remember it was spring break before it started, and we had a week of spring break, and it was like school's back. But also there was this pandemic sort of simmering. And then like the day before school, we got this email. 1 more week of spring break, and it was like, what? Are you serious? This is amazing. What an amazing thing to happen. Then that week went by, and we were like, all right, fun's over. Let's get back to it. And it was like, spring break's extended by another week. It was a little Twilight Zone-y after that. It was like, really? I have a feeling this is going to be a monkey paw situation. What's going on here? And then school just never went back after that.
Spanish flu of 1918, I think I read some newspaper articles where they canceled concerts for like 2 weeks, and then they immediately went back to playing just like with open air or something like that. So, even though millions of people died, it was people still were like rushing back to make music or listen to music.
That really makes you question human beings' risk to reward ratio. Millions died. I'll go to this concert though. Screw it. Why not? That's wild. I always thought that I love music. Maybe I don't love music enough. I wouldn't die to see someone else's music. I'll say that. Maybe if I'm the performer, I'd be like, you know what? I'll risk everyone's life so they can see me perform. That seems worth it to me. Just being in the audience, I'm gonna stay home for this one. I don't know.
But the second that people were able to experience it more safely after lockdowns stopped, people rushed back. I remember very vividly the first concert that I had in Nashville, Tennessee was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. The sheer electricity in the air after people had not experienced this thing for more than a year. AI will kind of clarify that even more. The more that you polish away the humanity, polish away the sweat and gunk away from it, the more people feel disconnected from it. And then the second that they can experience it, ooh, baby, you reconnect with your humanity in this really beautiful way.
You know, that raises an interesting question. Is AI polishing away the gunk and the sweat and the imperfections of music? Because as far as I can tell, it's just trained on music. So if you train it on stuff that is like gunky, won't it make gunky stuff? Obviously not in the same way that the original is gunky, because that's the thing with AI. Like, it's this collage of a bunch of stuff, which inherently makes it very confusing. Like, I've dabbled with making AI music on this show and just off of the show too. Like, not making it for like musical reasons, just like exploring, sort of like how you have to look at a horrific car crash on the road. Like, I have to go to Suno and just try it. And that, in my opinion, is sort of the issue with it. Everything just sounds way too influenced by too much stuff. I think back to all the songs that I've written, and even like pieces on guitar that I've written. I'm usually drawing from one or two other pieces that I'm basing like the structure on, or just some general music ideas. But there's a big difference between inspired by and then actually taking it and mixing it with a bunch of other stuff and making an average. It's almost more traceable in AI music. Like, you can hear things in a much more traceable way than how we just take inspiration and make music from inspiration. You know what I mean? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So I've got lots of friends who are exceptionally talented, like jazz musicians, and so I go to a lot of these jazz jams.
Oh, you're a groupie. Very nice. We need groupies in this world. Good. I hope you carry their gear for them. They need that.
It's almost depressing how good these musicians are, you know?
Yeah, that means you need to practice, Alex O'Connor. If you get depressed, depressing is such a non-musical way to feel about someone else's talent that they worked for so hard. It's inspiring when you see somebody like that. It's not depressing. Why are you depressed? Because your life decisions didn't lead you to be them? Well, you can change that. Did you know that you are a constantly changing and evolving human being that will probably live another 10 years at least? Do you know how much you can get done in 10 years? You can become amazing at anything in 10 years. I don't care what it is. 12 years, especially for classical. Roll the clip.
It is, of course, by no means essential to be a hound dog. A rock and roll guitarist can be turned out in 12 hours flat. The classical player must devote at least 12 solid years to patient study. You pays your money and you takes your pick.
Do you think you'll be alive for another 12 years? Most likely. Even if you don't think you are, you'd be surprised. You might be. You know, it's the modern age. We have medicine. I don't care how old you are. If you made it to 70, you'll probably make it to 82. So start practicing. Start working for that. You will never be on your deathbed and be like, man, I think I understand music a little too well. I should have spent less time doing that. Maybe you'll wish that you spent more time with your family. Incorporate your family somehow. I don't know. Just whatever. All right.
Few people there, and as you say, it's like a small room. And I gotta say, like, I'm not really into jazz, man. I like some jazz, like, sure, why not, as everybody does.
Yeah, like, most people aren't really into fugues when they hear them for the first time. Most people aren't into really wacky Michelin star restaurant meals that come out and it's on a plate like that big and it comes out that big and it's just one bite. It's complex and it's foreign. What people do like as children, they like soda pop, they like potato chips, these simple things: salt, crunchy potato, soda, sugar, fizz. You just get these like two things. And same thing with pop music. You get a couple of ideas and they're extremely easy to digest. It's junk food. These things have acquired tastes and it is possible to obtain them. And if you want to acquire those tastes, showing up to the shows like you're doing is a great idea. I think we learn about ourselves more as we push ourselves to understand these things.
Nonetheless, I like keep going to these things just because they're so fun. Because like it's just like watching people do. It's the same reason I'd watch, like, I don't really follow football, but if I might watch a compilation of like the 100 greatest goals in history or something, because like I love watching people just be excellent at things that they're excellent at.
God, that is such an unmusical reason to go to a show. I really like going to classical guitar concerts because I have insomnia and they help me sleep. They're just so relaxing. That is not the purpose of this whatsoever. Is that really what you want to be focusing on? You know, because if I go to a jazz show, and what I find so interesting about soloists, improv soloists, I mean, so be it jazz or even really great rock guitar soloists, is that they have an ability to actually storytell with something that has no story. There is no story in music. Music is not a language like that. Leonard Bernstein had a lecture where he talked about this, where like English is a very literal language and music is sort of a level below that. There's no inherent meaning in any given note. There are not specific meanings, but like some kind of meaning in intervals. Like, for example, he'll do like this. You know, there's no meaning there, right? But there is meaning there. And as it moves, yeah, like some stuff happened there, right? That told a little bit of a story. And what's really amazing with jazz musicians is that through maybe like 32 or 64 bars, like depending on how long of a solo they're taking, they can weave an actual, like, not literal story, but they can sort of take your imagination on a journey for a little bit. And they're being creative and thoughtful and weaving the story, and it makes you as the listener start thinking creatively as well. And then that's the engagement right there. But just watching them be like technically good at like pressing keys or like playing notes, picking, like that's nothing. That's like, you might as well be a toddler, like listening to music at that point. Like that is what a child would latch onto. There's no creativity in that. Like, what are you looking at? And if you feel offended by what I'm saying because I'm calling you a toddler, if that's what you're interested in, you will grow up if you keep listening to it. You know, you might be a jazz toddler, and that's fine. You might be a classical toddler too. I encourage that you now push to try to grow up. You know, try to grow up a little bit. I haven't grown up as much as I can. I would say, if anything, I'm probably a classical, like, 13 or 14-year-old, and I'm a jazz 9-year-old. Which Alex O'Connor sounds like he's a jazz baby. That's fine, though. It's time to grow up, though. It's time to start growing up. Can't stay a kid forever. I know that it looks like you can, based on how I live my life. I just play guitar all day, and I talk poopy online. And I make a big stink about things, and I poop my pants, and I change my diaper. Or, well, my mommy changes my diaper. I'm a social toddler, but like, you know, classical 13-year-old. I know people who experience classical music just so much differently than I do, and I look forward to getting there over decades and decades. I guess I just don't like these absolute statements. Jazz, it's not my thing. It could be, though. I don't like this food. You could if you eat it enough, and there's a reason why people like it. If you don't like something, do you understand it? And if you don't, maybe try to understand it and just accept that it's going to be a process, and you never know. You might get to the end of that and you think, thank God I tried, because this is my favorite thing now. All right, sorry.
And yeah, that's like where it happens more than anything I've ever seen in music. So I go to a lot of these jams, but even though,
and that's good, and I'm like dogging on Alex for being a jazz toddler. You also have to recognize what motivates you. So like what he's looking at now might be the first level of what he finds interesting about jazz, just the technical ability and the skill that goes into it, and that might be the stepping stone for him to look beneath that and see like what's actually going on, and then he'll find like that's the real interesting stuff. Like what I thought was interesting before was stupid and like surface level. That's sort of like how we teach children. As guitar teachers, we try to gamify things for kids. Like we make reward systems, because just the idea of practicing and getting better isn't yet enough usually for kids. Sometimes it is. For some special kids out there, that is enough for them, and they're the people who turn into great musicians because they need no external motivation or trickery to make them practice more. But you might provide like rewards and stuff for practicing. Like I remember I had it was actually a ukulele student. This is when I taught in person in college. He was like 6, and I could not get him to just sit in the chair and like try to work out some notes until I discovered this reward system. And it's a stupid reward system. It was just the chords are on a sheet of paper, and every time he could play the chord, I would let him circle the chord with a marker, like a red marker or something. Doing that was what he needed to just like actually sit down and try to play the chords. So if you need that motivation to do it, fine, whatever. Once you are able to recognize that, though, you should be very motivated to grow from that and find rewards that are more internal.
You know what I mean? Because of the humanity of it. And yeah, like you're going to hyper-emphasize the inhumanity of like computerized, automated music that will probably just increase the demand for that kind of stuff.
See, is it really computerized automated music with AI? Because again, it's the mixing of a bunch of human-made music. I would consider computerized automated music to be random number generated using MIDI in a DAW, like you give it a certain scale and certain rhythms with probabilities on like MIDI instruments. And that would be inhuman computer generated music. But AI is something different than that. I guess I just don't get that description of it. And I'm not defending AI. You guys know that I'm not. It's honestly more sinister than non-human music because, like, no one's hurt with non-human music, just random number generators. And if it happens to make something amazing, nobody's hurt by people enjoying that. But with human-trained AI, we almost have this weird servitude to the machine that it requires us to actually make outputs.
It's a memory that you make with other people in a space. It's not the same thing as listening to, a jazz recording on headphones. There's, drinks, there's conversation, you're half listening and then you turn around and then you see somebody do something crazy like, whoa, and then you go back to conversation and then somebody else comes in and sits in and then there's like...
That's a weird way to think about music, because none of that's music. That's just hanging out in a party and having musicians play background music, which is just... I don't know. That seems a little weird. That sounds like something that the majority of people would want to do. Socialize in a party setting with food and drink and watch people do crazy stuff and half listen to music. That just sounds like a different thing from what I've been trying to describe. And I'm sure that this is Adam just trying to pitch, like he said, jazz concerts or live jazz music to Alex O'Connor as a fun place to be. I guess I would say if those are your motivations to go and you love music, you should strive to have the music be the most interesting part of what it is you're doing there. Like, that's why you're there. Because you hunger for creativity. That's why you should be there. Not because you're literally hungry and thirsty. Alright, I'm done. Yeah, so that was Adam Neely's pitch for jazz music. I feel like I was a little bit of a douchebag in this one, but I don't know. What do you guys expect? If you don't get the music, maybe listen again. Maybe try to learn about it. Start playing an instrument if you don't already. Study classical guitar. That's a pretty cool thing to study. I like it. I don't know. And that being said, I think we can wrap this one up here. Hey, my finger's still healing up. It's getting better. I'm able to practice. I've been working a lot on just left-hand technique, not using my index finger. I had a lesson recently, and my teacher brought to my attention that my left hand looks like an electric guitarist hand. And I've been noticing this more and more, and I agree with him. And it's a little heartbreaking, but it's stuff that I need to hear. And cutting off the tip of my finger by accident has actually given me the opportunity to just focus on how my pinky interacts with the fretboard. And I've been working on a lot of slurs. And it's been really good. I've been able to play through my music a bit. It still hurts. I think I still need like 3 days or so for this to really heal up. But when it is healed up, I'll be coming back with a new mindset that I think is going to lead to much better left-hand technique, which is something I've been neglecting. I talk about right-hand technique so much, and it is more important on classical guitar to have proper effective and consistent right hand technique. I feel like my left hand I just haven't given much thought to, and I am now, and it's interesting. Alright, let's actually wrap it up. Of course, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. I have a recital class. It's this Sunday, so if you want to play for me, that's a place to do it. It's kind of like going to a jazz bar, except you get to stay home. You don't have to wear pants. Just make sure I don't know that you're not wearing pants. And of course, head on down over to Ruten's Delight for some merch, and I'll see you in the next one.